Story 1. At 17, I wore a black dress and heels, a night-out outfit, to the first funeral I ever attended. All I knew was that you wear black to a funeral, and that was the nicest black outfit I owned. My mom told me afterward how inappropriate it was, which she could have told me before I left, and I am still upset she did not. I apologized to the family of the deceased, who did not seem to care. However, I think about this regularly, and it re-humiliates me every time. Thank you to everyone who replied saying it probably was not a big deal. This moment genuinely haunts me. Story 2. The first time I went to a baptism for a friend's baby, I did not realize you were supposed to bring a gift. Oops. Oh well, now I know. Story 3. I did not know I was supposed to bring something to parties. My family always went overboard with food and drinks and did not want anyone to bring anything, so it never occurred to me that it could be rude not to bring something. Story 4. For most of my life, I used to think you had to sit in the front seat when you took a taxi alone. I thought that, in movies, people sat in the back only for technical filming reasons. Story 5. I took a summer field class in college that involved long road trips. There were several vans driven by the professor or one of the teaching assistants transporting the students. About a week into it, I noticed the professor had started getting somewhat snippy with me in particular. I mentioned this to my classmates who were usually in the same van. They said it was because I had fallen asleep while riding shotgun, which is considered inappropriate. I had never heard of this etiquette rule. It wasn't about me wasting the good seat by sleeping. They had made me sit there because they wanted to sleep as well. Story 6. Early in my career, I aggressively wedged myself into a closing elevator door that was carrying our chief executive officer and other members of the executive team. Story 7. I wore a cream-colored dress to a wedding. I was young and unaware of the rule not to wear white. It was the only nice dress I had at the time. The bride's dress was almost the same shade, and because it was a family member's wedding, I appeared in a few of the family photos. I think she still believes that I did it deliberately. Story 8. The first time I went to a bachelorette party, it was a combined bachelor and bachelorette party, and we were camping. I was the only woman invited who wasn't in the wedding party. The bride was my sister-in-law. Her brother, whom I was dating at the time and am now married to, was a groomsman. I didn't think to bring a gift since I was just tagging along. Every other woman, who were all bridesmaids, brought a gift, and I was very embarrassed. One of them even commented that it was standard practice to bring a gift to a bachelorette party and asked why I hadn't. The only other bachelorette parties I have been to since were my own and my sister's, and I planned both, so I still haven't really been to a traditional one as a guest. My sister-in-law also did not think it was strange that I didn't bring a gift and was just happy I was there. Story 9. My mom did not have a wedding band, just an engagement ring, and my dad had no band, probably because he was a machinist. When I first proposed, I had no clue there were supposed to be 2 rings for the lady. That was a very expensive discovery that was dropped on me. Story 10. Up until recently, I have been replying to texts and chats with "okay." I have since learned that this is seen as passive-aggressive at best and very rude at worst. I thought it was just a short, polite way of acknowledging that I had seen the text. I hope I did not upset anyone too much. Story 11. Bringing a gift to a housewarming party. I showed up empty-handed and did not realize it was expected until I saw everyone else with gifts. Story 12. The first few haircuts I had as an adult, I did not tip. No one ever told me it was customary. I felt so bad when I found out. I had been going to the same hairdresser since I was a kid. Story 13. My husband was genuinely shocked when I told him he was supposed to take his jacket off indoors. A big, puffy winter jacket. He was sitting on the couch and at the dinner table still wearing it. It was not particularly cold indoors. He just did not know he was meant to take it off. It was not a huge deal. We do not go to formal parties or anything, just dinner at friends' houses. He was shocked it was a thing, and I was surprised he had never learned it was a thing. We still do not know who is more in the right to be shocked. Story 14. I once gave my new French clients cheek kisses and might as well have licked their foreheads. Apparently, you do not do that with people you just met in a professional setting. Hard cringe. Story 15. You are welcome. is the only acceptable reply to thank you for many people, especially the demographic I used to wait tables for. Story 16. I still can't figure out when it's an air hug or kiss, or a real hug or kiss, as a woman from other women in a friendly way. Story 17. This is a relatively new development, as far as I can tell, but apparently giving someone a thumbs up emoji is now interpreted as an offensive gesture. As someone who uses the thumbs up for acknowledgement and generally positive intentions, I am baffled by this. Story 18. One time I was on a subway, probably in New York City. I was naive. This may sound horrible, but I am Asian, and it is not that some of my first friends were not black in Atlanta. However, there was a black man sitting right next to me with very kinky afro hair. I had never seen that up close, and I was so fascinated that I could not help myself and asked him if I could touch his hair. He sighed and said okay. I patted his hair like a dog. What is wrong with me? Story 19. I didn't know you were supposed to say thank you when someone says bless you. My parents and I aren't religious and don't follow old-fashioned manners that don't have a clear purpose. For example, no pointing at someone in public. I understand not pointing at strangers because it's rude, but sometimes I need to point out a person I know in a crowd. It depends on the context. Growing up, I thought saying bless you was strange because sneezing is no different from coughing or burping. It's just the body doing what it needs. It never occurred to me that I should thank people who didn't actually do anything for me, and if I didn't, they might think I was rude. This rule still stresses me out. Story 20. I went to a friend's wedding and brought chocolate as a gift. It was a small wedding, luckily, but my boyfriend at the time was so embarrassed and clarified that I should have brought money and a card. I apologized later to the couple. I really had no idea about wedding etiquette. Story 21. I accidentally wore white to my cousin's wedding in another state. I was 16 years old and saw a short halter white dress that was crochet over a white stretchy nylon lining in a shop a few days before the ceremony. No one stopped me or told me about the no white except for the bride rule. Aunts, cousins, and my mom were all with me at the time of purchase. No one said a word while we were getting ready for the ceremony. I wasn't particularly close with my cousin or his new wife, but we were friendly. I definitely received side eye and was snubbed after the wedding by both. It was only years later that I understood I had committed a wedding faux pas and why the bride and groom became cold toward me. Story 22. I wouldn't say it is a social convention, but I learned too late in life that quoting very obscure random lines from obscure television shows and movies and assuming people will know exactly what you are referencing can lead to some awkward situations. For example, there is a British sitcom called I'm Alan Partridge. In one episode, Alan makes a new friend called Dan. Dan later introduces Alan to his wife and says, "Give him a twirl. Let the fox see the rabbit." Alan replies, "Yeah, but which one's which?" Fast forward 10 years, and I am at work about to finish an early shift. The late shift comes in, sees me sitting next to a female colleague, and says, "Ah, it's Beauty and the Beast." I say, "Yeah, but which one's which?" I was in a human resources meeting 2 days later. Story 23. At the first wedding I attended, I did not realize what the receiving line was. I thought some guests were taking too long talking to the parents-in-law, so I walked around them, straight up to the bride and groom, and began chatting. Story 24. I started going to the hair salon soon after high school and I never tipped. I had no idea. We lived in the country and my mother never went. After a few years, I finally realized and asked my hairdresser how much the tip should be. She said, "Oh, I am one of the owners, it is okay." She was so nice about it. Story 25. I yawn rather loudly and often. I had no idea it was considered rude to do this in public places. I would yawn while people talked to me while sitting in a lecture at university, at the dinner table, and on a date. I truly did not realize this could be seen as disinterest or boredom. Story 26. Not as long ago as I would have preferred, my husband and I went through the viewing line at my grandmother's viewing. We were not able to get there early for the family viewing time beforehand, and I wanted to see her, hug all my aunts and uncles. Dad had 8 siblings, and say hi to my own parents because I had not seen them since we had been told my grandmother had passed. When we got to the end, my aunts and uncles thankfully got a laugh out of it and were happy to see us. But my mom told me later we should have just sat with my many cousins off to the side and waited to view her and say hello to everyone afterward. I had no idea. Story 27. Apparently, you are not actually supposed to honk if you are horny. I sometimes get so horny that my stomach hurts, and then I see a car in front of me with a honk if you are horny bumper sticker. I start honking for miles, following this driver, hoping they have a solution or maybe some magazines or a calendar. But when this person finally pulls over, they have the nerve to get mad at me because it was apparently a joke sticker. This is not a joke for me. This is my life. I still get angry every time I see someone with that lie plastered across their bumper. Story 28. The first time I ever traveled solo outside of my state, I stayed in a hotel downtown that only offered valet parking. We never used valet in my family. It was also my first time renting a car. I didn't know you were supposed to tip every time they brought your car. I thought you only did it at the very end. This was about 20 years ago, and I am still embarrassed that the first 2 times they brought my car, I didn't tip. Story 29. I wore a white linen dress to a wedding about 20 years ago in my early 20s. It was a simple sundress that was not fancy or like a wedding dress, but still, I didn't know at the time. Oh well, they all still talk to me. The couple is divorced, though. Story 30. You bring cake for your colleagues when it is your birthday. I do not care about my birthday, so my colleagues should not either. Story 31. I wore a white dress to my mother's second marriage. I had no idea that only the bride wears white and thought everyone was supposed to. I specifically bought that dress for the wedding. She was a bit upset but did not explain why. It was not until about 10 years later that I discovered how badly I messed up. It was not her first time leaving me to figure things out, and it certainly was not the last. I have trouble with social norms, but if anyone had said anything, I would have changed immediately while dying of embarrassment and shame. Story 32. In New Jersey, the colored sprinkle bits on ice cream are called jimmies. Apparently, elsewhere in the world, jimmies is another name for condoms. So, I asked for condoms on my ice cream in a crowded shop. Story 33. I am 32 and only recently discovered that open bar does not really mean drink whatever you want. An old colleague informed me a few weeks ago that my former bosses hated when I attended work events because I made everyone drink and dance. Now I am wondering if people felt the same at other events I have attended, such as weddings and birthday parties, and I no longer wish to show my face in public ever. Story 34. My partner and I had moved to a new apartment complex. There was a gyro and falafel place nearby that looked good, and we kept saying we needed to check it out. One day, neither of us wanted to go through the effort of making dinner, so we decided to try it. We went there and the place was empty, but the door was still open. We were looking at the menu on the wall when the owner came out. He said, "Hello, friends. Today is a fasting day. We will be open again at sunset if you wish to come back." We had gone to a falafel place on the first day of Ramadan. We both felt incredibly awkward and out of place. We did go back after Ramadan and it was pretty good. Story 35. I remember going to my neighbor's or friend's house and just swinging the pantry open at some point because I didn't realize it was rude. My older sister was very mad at me, and I was so confused. I was probably around 7 or 8 years old, maybe younger. Story 36. I never used a toilet brush. I knew what they were, but I thought they were just for occasionally scrubbing your toilet bowl once or twice a year. Sorry to everyone who followed after me when I streaked the bowl. Story 37. I did not know you had to bring a gift to a housewarming party. I just showed up with chips that I took home afterward. Story 38. I honestly did not know about tipping hotel housekeeping. My family never did it when I was growing up, and I was in my 30s before I realized it was a thing. Story 39. Wore white to a wedding twice, once when I was around 10 and once when I was around 14. I always thought at a wedding everyone is supposed to wear white. Story 40. Apparently, the man is supposed to pay for everything on first dates. However, after learning about this, I think it is unreasonable and will not do it anyway. If you cannot go 50-50 or pay for your own expenses before I even know if I like you, I am going to be suspicious. Story 41. Attending concerts, I didn't realize there is, in fact, unity when it comes to them and that people experience very real feelings. Story 42. I thought if you brought a gift to the wedding shower, you did not need to bring a gift to the wedding. Story 43. I went to a techno club in an all-beige outfit. I did not realize until months later that I was the only person not dressed all in black. Story 44. Gifting money to the couple at a wedding. I have only been to 2 weddings as an adult. After the first one, which was for my partner's cousin, my mother-in-law criticized us for not bringing a card with money. Apparently, we are supposed to give them money as a thank you for the food and reception. Before that, the last wedding I attended was when I was 9, and my partner had never been to a wedding. How were we supposed to know this? Story 45. I did not know the etiquette of leaving the last piece of food on a shared platter. I also did not understand that when someone asks, "Does anyone want this?" they are actually saying that they want it but do not want to be rude. So I often gladly took it. I was mortified when my boyfriend explained it to me in high school after we had eaten at his house on many occasions where shared appetizers and desserts were served. Story 46. I wore an ivory dress to a wedding. I was 19, and it was the nicest dress I owned. My mother had made it for my graduation, and I only wore it on special occasions. I am 49 now and still feel ashamed when I think of it. Story 47. I was invited to a wedding and left relatively early. I felt like an intruder at someone else's family event. It was an ex-girlfriend's cousin, whom I am friends with. I am definitely not friends with the ex, so it was really awkward seeing the whole family again. Story 48. Marriage. I am not against the institution of marriage, but I will never marry someone in the eyes of the law. Story 49. As a man, I did not abuse my wife. My life would probably be better if I had actually done so because then I could take responsibility for an action I committed and show change. But since I never hurt her, never even yelled at her, and constantly had to compliment her to prevent her anxiety attacks, I have been forced to prove not only that I never hit her, but that I have changed in a way that I will continue never to hit her. It is difficult for my kids, though, as they do not have a say. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.